Welcome everyone to the Feel Inspired podcast. Question for you. Are you aware that in dating and you putting yourself out there is going to be one of the biggest PR, sales, marketing exercises you will ever undertake? I have to say to people that we give so much time to our CVs. If there's a job that you want to apply for, something falls into your inbox, you will give untold time to preparing that CV, making sure you're the best version of yourself for that role. You'll do the work, you'll prep, you'll research, you'll do everything that you need to do. But when it comes to dating, and especially in the South Asian culture, more so, we so rest on our laurels and we don't realize that things have changed so much. You'll hear on social media, you hear online, people talk about the 3 second rule, that you need to have a powerful hook. You need to get people's attentions within 3 seconds. But I'd say within dating, it's actually going to be within a split second. If that picture is not right, if that first impression you've given doesn't catch someone's attention, they're not going to stick around to find out more about you. So this is why it's imperative to think about your dating journey as the biggest PR journey that you will ever go on, and sales journey you will ever go on for yourself. And so think about it in a different way. If you were now to think of yourself as a brand, a product, or anything, I'm not saying dehumanize yourself in any way. I'm just saying, think about how you present yourself. Are you putting your best foot forward to capture that attention or not? And this leads me to my lovely guest who's joined me today, the amazing Dipesh Virji, a sales expert, who's kind of like going to put the sales, marketing, branding side of things onto the dating sphere. But we're going to talk about other things as well, because you're a married man. You've been through the wars, you've been through the trenches of finding a partner, you've just become a dad.
Yep.
So I wouldn't mind hearing some of your tidbits of wisdom as well. And, what's your secret to keeping a healthy relationship and now also being a dad? Like you start to think about, what are you going to say to your daughter going forward? How are you going to get her ready for dating in the future?
My son.
Your son, sorry. Do you know why I said that? Because my neighbors are having a girl. That's why.
We just spoke about that just before we started recording. I get it.
Yeah, it's fine. All right, before I do that, I have a tradition on the Feel Inspired podcast. Of course, I've got my Spark Conversations cards. You can get these on sparkconversations.shop. They're a great tool, not only for dating. You can take them on dates with you as well. They're basically a set of playing cards that have got questions on there. You can use them in the boardroom. You can use them with your family to play games or whatever. So I'm going to do this the way I did it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about these, so I'm excited to.
Okay, cool. Right, so how I'm going to do it, I'm going to get you to tell me to stop 3 times.
Fine.
Pull out 3 cards, and whatever question then I choose out of those 3, I'm going to ask you.
Sounds good.
All right, let's do it. So say stop whenever you're ready.
Stop.
All right, so that's 1.
Stop.
All right, that's 2.
Stop.
Alrighty, and that is 3. So these were all completely at random. All right, and let's see what questions we have. This is where we were talking about it. I'm at that age, I need my glasses to read these now. Okay, I know which one I'm going to ask you. All right, so the question is, on the 9 of spades, just to clarify if anyone thinks I'm cheating, tell me about something that has happened to you that has totally changed your life. Why? And yeah. Why is it changed your life?
Is it just limited to one thing, or
tell me 2 or 3 if you
want? Okay. Look, the first one I think is probably the most recent life event over the last 6 months, which is having our son.
And not daughter.
Yeah. If we had a daughter, that would have been a huge surprise. We were talking about this just before we started recording. There's this realization during the whole pregnancy, Krish, my wife, was obviously experiencing everything. The baby's growing inside of her. And I'm there externally witnessing everything, logically and intellectually aware of what's happening, but emotionally, probably not as connected as Krish. That's the way I'd describe it. And I've had this conversation with her a number of times. And it's not until he arrived where I felt any kind of true emotional connection, because it was the first time that I got to hold him and be there with him. And I think there's something that biologically gets triggered when you hold your child for the first time. And everything that I thought was important up until that point dissipated into the background. And all of a sudden, my focus, my attention, my awareness went to number one, I've got to keep this human being alive. And number two, it's like, well, what am I actually doing the stuff that I'm doing for? Who am I doing it for? Because before he was in the picture, it was my own goals. I was like, what number do I need to earn? What status do I want to chase? All that kind of stuff. And as soon as he's got here, it's like, well, why am I doing it? Ultimately, it's to make sure that he has a good life. And that's it. There's no like, I still have my other goals and everything, but they're not the primary focus anymore. And what's been really interesting is that as they have shifted more to secondary focuses and my son has become my primary focus, my secondary focuses are happening faster because I have a bigger purpose than myself. So that's the first one. And the second one, interestingly enough, is the opposite of life, which is death. And I've experienced a lot of death, I'd say in the last 10 years, just within very close family members, and then a very, very close friend that passed away last year as well. And it just helps you realize that although we think we have a lot of time, really we don't. And instead of wasting time being indecisive, unsure about what we want to do, just debating internally whether something is right or wrong, just it's helped me reinforce the idea, just make the decision and figure it out afterwards. Because I will be many more steps further ahead if I just made the decision and then adjusted after that decision than having thought about it for the next 7 months or a year on whether I think one is right or wrong, because there is no right or wrong. So there's my two.
Beautiful. And with regards to your son, and you kind of alluded to it, but so the goals themselves haven't changed as such, but your purpose in life has changed. Would that be the right description?
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Like the goals are still there. In fact, the goals are probably bigger
Yeah.
because now like there's an additional human being involved.
Yeah.
So may need some more. But ultimately the reason why I'm doing it and the drive behind it has changed. And that's also then changed my approach, my energy to that situation as well, because doing it for the sake of chasing status and a materialistic value is one thing, but doing it for a purpose that is deeper rooted than that, I feel has shifted my own energy towards it, which has made me more certain, more driven, more determined to achieve the outcome. And it's that energetic shift, which is why I believe that the results that I was originally going for are starting to click in and happen a lot faster. Because my belief is we are all energy, everything is energy. And if you have your energy adjusted to a certain frequency, then you will attract that into your life. So when your energy changes and levels up, generally the stuff that you tend to attract also changes and levels up with you.
I've got a feeling this conversation is going to go completely different direction to what I initially envisaged, right?
That, to be fair, this is what happened when I interviewed you.
Yeah.
We started off in one direction and ended up in like 17 others. And it
It's
got very
true.
deep very quickly.
It's true. It's so true. The other thing that you talked about, which for me is a massive one, is something I talk a lot to people about who are on their dating and relationship journey. Like you said, I've experienced a lot of loss in life as well. You know, my sister it was her anniversary of passing a few last week, and she was 38. She would have been 39 a week later. So your age.
Exactly my age. That's
Yeah.
crazy,
And
isn't it?
my brother-in-law passed last year as well, and he was 40.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember.
And you know, the advice I give to those who are sort of under 30, I've even changed that benchmark. It used to be 35, now I've reduced it to 30. The advice, the life advice, or the coaching that I give to those who are under 30 is very different to what I give to those who are over 30. So when they're over 30, it involves a lot more tough love. But it involves talking a lot more about this subject, which I think we just shy away from too much. You know, the whole aspect about death, um, how we think about our own mortality, and this illusion of time that we have. You know, and you know, I don't want to get too like out there philosophical on the aspect of time, but when we just think about say 75, 80 short years. You know, you hit 40, that's half your life anyway, on average. Some people, like we know, a lot less, that's their whole life. So how you think about all the things in front of you, the things you like to achieve for your own personal satisfaction, but also for the legacy you want to leave for, you know, your son, for your family. You know, I don't have any kids. My wife and I don't have any kids, but I do think about my nieces and nephews and the kids that I'm going to have an influence on, my neighbors' kids, and so on and so forth. And I do want them to think, actually, you know what? At some point, I want them to actually think, I learned something from one of my uncles. You know, Uncle Amit used to say this thing, or he did this thing. In fact, you can still find his content on an old platform we used to use called YouTube, and you'll find some of his videos there or whatever. And you'll see, and he said this one thing or whatever that, you know, changed my life, changed my perspective on life. So I'm so glad you said that, because I think it's a conversation we need to have more, preparing ourselves that, you know, how do you actually you know, live by that edict, rather than it just being some sort of like ethereal concept. Oh yeah, we're all going to die one day and some random thing. But actually, how do we practically live? Because even when we say things like life is short, you know, tomorrow could be our last day, you know, it could be a last whatever, that doesn't really give any practical tools to from which to operate and actually think about how I live today. And so I think that this is something probably you and I on a very similar level.
Yeah.
Would you say to anyone out there, right? Because the other thing as well, I just want to add this as well. So you've reached a good milestone in your life. You're married. You've had the experience of going through a wedding, meeting a beautiful partner, and now you've had the experience of having a child. So they're all things in your life that you've wanted to experience, and now you've experienced them. I see a whole gambit of people who, you know, are in their 40s, 45s, even 50s, have never been married, have had kids, never had these experiences. So what do you say to people as well, to both those people, the younger ones, the older ones, who are the younger ones thinking we've got loads of time, and the older ones thinking, I wish I'd done this?
Can I add something to your first point
Yeah.
around the practicality around the conversation around death and time and stuff like that first? So it's so weird you said that today, which is like, you know, it's not really practical to, we hear kind of tidbits around death and time and everything, but how does that practically change for an individual, right? And I had this conversation yesterday with Mo, who runs the studio, but not about death, but about money. And I think the answer to both death and money on how to be more practical about your approach to those things is that we need to talk about it more. And I think it's very common in Western culture to talk about money and death, but in Eastern Indian culture, it's very frowned upon for a couple of different reasons. People almost don't talk about money for various different reasons, including not wanting to attract bad luck and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of superstition attached to it. But then also around death, there's a lot of superstition attached around it, and it's not something that should be talked about. And I think that that is inherently why so many people experience significant struggles. Is because if you're not talking about it, when you are experiencing yourself, who do you go to for help? Like, you can't expect to work through every single problem you have in your life by yourself.
Yeah.
Like, how does that work? Everyone has help at some point. And if everyone has help to get them past a threshold or an obstacle in their life, why is death or money treated any differently? And I think that's something that, like, we have the power to do through our platforms. And the more people that can understand that and do their best to break away from the mold, the more people that they'll be able to impact themselves as well, by just having conversations that might feel uncomfortable, might feel awkward, but are necessary to help break this idea that you just got to deal with it and struggle and that's it. And I think the same goes for relationships. Like, how many people do you know? Well, you probably know quite a few because this is what you do. But for the majority of people, when they're going to seek advice around anything, the chances are they're probably asking the person that isn't able to give them the best possible advice, or they're speaking to people that are in a similar situation to them and they also don't have as much awareness around certain things, meaning they don't have the ability to kind of take that information and then apply their own awareness to it and get a different outcome. So I think that's the first point around what you just shared, is we need to be able to openly speak much more about the things that we're all experiencing, so that people realize, number one, it's common, and number two, there's ways around it, and there's multiple ways. There's never just one. And I think that's the main point of focus there.
Yeah. And it's that idea of leverage as well. Like Tony Robbins talks about that. And I've always liked the word he's used there, which is leverage. And when I speak to people, I say to them, you know what, when I talk about this, it's not meant to be a morbid subject. It's supposed to be there to light a fire under your backside to get you moving in the most practical way possible. Because, you know, this illusion that we have time, and the illusion that, you know, I could do it tomorrow. You know, at the very grossest level, it's just us saying I could do it tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be there. We think of it as a certainty. So I could do it tomorrow. I could do it tomorrow. I could do it tomorrow, and that tomorrow never comes. And we have to then think about, okay, if I don't do this today, what if tomorrow is genuinely never there? Like, you know, I genuinely think about this now a lot, even in my day to day, the most practical small little things. If I see someone, I was telling you, I joined a new gym, and I didn't do something yesterday that I wish I did. And this is the kind of thing that I'm trying to make sure that I use that statement in my head, because tomorrow may not come. I played pickleball yesterday. This is a really random, sorry, not pickleball, paddle, the first time yesterday. Random example. And I saw four guys playing, and partly I got sidetracked, but I kind of wish I just went up to him and just said, "Hey, I know I'm new to this, but if you guys ever need a fourth, you know, one of you guys not available, take my number and just contact me. I'll be down for playing." And I didn't do it, and I think, crap. Luckily, I bumped into a friend at this gym, and he plays, and he was like, "Yeah, just I'll put you into the group so we can go play whenever you want." But it's little things like that. I know this is like I said, a random example, but it's little things like that. The moments in our days where I think to myself, right, how do I use that thought now to make sure that I do something that's in front of me? And in the context of dating and relationships, it could be a guy thinking, "Wow, that woman's really cute. I really like her," and going up to her, making the decision, I'm going to go chat to her, because if I don't, I may not get that opportunity tomorrow. I may just never see her, but also I may not be here. But at least within me, I feel good having done it.
I think the reason we don't do it, or the people that are listening to this might not want to do it, it comes down to fear more than anything else, and like fear to varying degrees, right? Let me ask you this: why didn't you ask them yesterday at the paddle court when you saw the four?
To be honest, by now, I think I'm at the stage where it's not so much fear as much. I think I kind of got sidetracked a little bit more. I probably could have made more effort to grab them before they left. So I think for me, it was less fear. But I think if you'd asked me, say, even as short as a year ago,
Yeah.
there would have been a lot more fear in me of approaching these guys and looking and feeling like an idiot. Oh, these guys are going to think I'm a bit of a
That's it.
div, right? You know, for coming up and asking them these questions.
Exactly that, right? So it's fear has a spectrum, okay, and it could be from as small as feeling like an idiot to, oh my god, I think I'm going to die if I do this, if I go and ask this girl out or whatever. And what you've got to realize is that your fear is, number one, very unlikely to be true, and number two, it's the one thing that's stopping you from experiencing every single thing that you actually want in life. Because everything that you want is such a cliche fridge magnet thing to say, but everything that you want is on the other side of fear.
Sorry,
And
man. We need to hear it more, but we just need a way of getting people for it to sink into people.
I think there has to, for it to sink into people, I think there has to be a reason as to why that statement is true, right? So the statement is, everything that you want is on the other side of fear. But why is that such a true statement, and why is that so important? I think it's because everything that you want, that you don't currently have, or you want to be, or you want to achieve, is not known to you. So it's in the realm of the unknown. And by default, human beings are fearful of the unknown. That's why that statement is so powerful, because you don't know if the guys on the court were going to say yes. You don't know if the girl that you want to go up to in a bar or a restaurant or on the street is going to say yes. And that then plays out into multiple different scenarios of how it could potentially go wrong in most people's minds. And that level of unknown and that level of fear is stifling. And because it's stifling, it's why we then experience inaction. And then off the back of inaction, we feel like we should just ponder more, maybe think up a new strategy, come up with multiple new reasons as to why you're going to think about it for the next 5 months, which are perfect strategies to avoid action. But the fastest way to get over that fear is take the action, get rejected, and do it over and over and over again until you succeed.
Yeah. And that nicely segues into that topic for us, which is about kind of the dating element, putting ourselves out there, how we position ourselves. And I think that it's massive right at the moment. And I think, to be honest, it's probably pretty bad in all cultures anyway. But I obviously tend to deal with more of the South Asian community within the UK. So I see it a lot. And I see both men and women really giving very little thought to their dating profiles, to how they put themselves out there. And, there's multi levels to this. One could be, for example, the picture they use. Then there could be any sort of spiel. So I think we might have had a conversation about this when we did your podcast. So one of the things I do on my singles WhatsApp group is like 750 plus people on there right now. And we treat it like a pseudo dating app. And so thankfully everyone started to use the template that we use, right? I still think it needs a little bit of improvement, but they've all started doing something which I kind of to teach them, which is using a headline. So that as well as a good picture, I say, right, create good headline, a show-stopping headline, like something that's going to stand out, make people like scroll-stoppingly good to, capture the attention. Because your perfect person, if they will never find any compatibility within you from the first glance unless you give them a reason to. So there's got to be something there they latch onto, whether it's you've done a really nice picture or you've put something that's going to grab their attention beneath that as well, because those first two things are the first things that they're going to see regardless of anything else. For both of us, right? We both I do obviously in my work in coaching, I still have to operate as a salesperson, my coaching. And if I don't position myself, and I often do this example when I'm coaching people, when I have a call and I'm talking to people, if I kind of just sit there like a meek little mouse and I think you should do this, and it'd be really good if you try. Are you going to believe in me? Bollocks, you're going to believe in me. You're going to think this guy's full of shit. But if I tell you I'm a fucking good coach, and if you listen to what I'm telling you right now, verbatim, I guarantee you'll get the results. Which of those two characters are you going to believe in?
Second one all day, every day.
Yeah. And it's the same principle on our dating profile. I'm someone who likes traveling. I like cooking. I like Netflix. And we kind of just don't give a second thought to how the information we put out is perceived by the people. I think it goes all levels, right? So whether you're talking sales or dating, and I think you as the expert in this, though, what's your message to people about how they put themselves out there? What do they need to do?
Oh, do you know what? I've been thinking about this because, look, out of the two of us, you're the love doctor. You're the one that can help people with the dating side of things. I've been in a very fortunate situation where I met my partner years ago, pre-dating apps, the way the world works now. And I have this conversation with my wife all the time, which was, if we were single right now, how the hell would we put ourselves out there? Like, what would you even begin to do? It's quite a scary thought, especially if you're new to it. And I think that you've got to look at, like you said, if you're there kind of just blending into the rest of like profiles on apps, which is where most people are now looking for their partners, then what are you doing to stand out? Because otherwise you do become that soft, quiet little voice in the background that no one really pays attention to, and people just scroll past quite easily. Okay. And I think that's where you can start looking at what people are doing in different industries away from things like dating, that you can look at and go, hey, I like the way that they're presenting themselves. How can I bring in elements of them or their company or their brand into my dating life? And it's so interesting. I mean, look, we're both in the YouTube world, right? Your dating profile is effectively a thumbnail and a title. So how do you look at it in that perspective then? So like when you look at your pictures, ask yourself, would you stop and take a second to look at the photo? And maybe don't ask yourself, because you might be a little bit biased. Go to 5 different people and ask them, hey, what do you think of this picture? What would you change about this picture? Is there anything else? Is there any of my pictures that you think would be better to present myself as my best foot forward. And then when it comes to your first couple of lines of description, I don't quite know how dating apps work, but I'm assuming that you can see some information before someone clicks on a profile.
Yeah, it depends, right? You know, so Hinge, you've got the 3-question thing.
Fine.
Other dating apps, you might have a profile or whatever. So,
Yeah, so I guess the question is, where's your personality,
mm,
right? Because you can, everyone can ask generic questions and everyone can give you a generic answer. But if you want to create an impression that attracts the right type of person for you, like ask yourself what brings in maybe like the quirkiest and the weirdest part of your own personality into the forefront of that conversation. Because what you're doing then is hopefully eliminating 85% of the people that would have clicked on your profile otherwise. The goal is not to get everyone to click on your profile. The goal is to get the people that match you to want to click on your profile. And the best way to do that is literally repel the people that you don't want.
yeah.
And it's so, even as I'm saying it out to you now, it's so counterintuitive, right? Because you go, I want the best opportunity to get as many potential prospects as possible. The reason I'm saying this is because businesses think the same way.
Yeah.
Businesses think the same way, which is, I want to attract every single customer. But your business isn't made for every single customer. Your business is made for the customers that are right for your business.
Or your ideal customer, right?
Yeah,
Your ideal customer avatar.
what is the term of ICP? Your
Yeah.
ideal customer profile,
Yeah.
right? Your dating should be treated in a similar way, which is, who's your ideal relationship partner? So there you go. IRP is your thing to trademark.
I'm gonna make a
Yeah,
note of that.
get that thing trademarked. So effectively, what's your IRP? What and then target that specific ideal relationship profile and forget the rest, because you already know that that's not what you want. So and before you can get into all of this, it goes back to a singular, super important question from day one, which is, what are you looking for? Because if you aren't aware of what you're looking for and you don't have the criteria outlined in your mind of what it is you want from a partner, then it's going to be very difficult to navigate which elements of yourself you want to put forward, because you're kind of trying to market to everyone. And there's a saying in business, which is, when you're trying to market to everyone, you're marketing to no one.
Yeah.
When you're trying to speak to everyone, you're speaking to no one. And the goal is to try and speak to your one person.
Yeah.
And then there might be like, if there's 100 people that would have typically connected with you in a month or a week or 2 months, depending on your profile or whatever, instead what you want is like the 10 people out of that 100 to be the ones that connect. And then you have a much easier job of navigating through that 10. Otherwise, how easy is it to get lost in distraction?
Yeah. And I'm sure I've seen some businesses do this as well, where they actually use the words and they're quite brazen about it, because it just makes their life easier. You're our ideal client if, and then they have a list of like a checklist of a few things. You know, you're someone who's in the market for a new sofa right now. You're, you know, want to spruce up your home, etc., etc.
Mhm.
They kind of pre-qualify you in a way. And I think you could so easily do the same thing in dating as well.
Yep. I mean, look, we run a I'm a partner in a company that sets up businesses in Dubai, and we run marketing campaigns for multiple different channels, right? So we've got Google, we've got Facebook, we've got TikTok. We're not trying to speak to everyone. We're not trying to speak to employees doing sub £100,000 a year. We're looking for business owners who are generally between 1 and 10 million in revenue and are looking to be more optimized for tax. It's quite a specific result that we're looking for in terms of the person that we're wanting to work with. And because we're specific, and because the specificity creates friction, we get the right person coming through. It takes longer,
Yeah.
because you're not trying to speak to everyone. But my God, when the people do come through as prospects, it's way, way nicer to go through the experience, because you're still talking to the type of person that you want to be dealing with. And look, every now and then someone slips by and isn't the right person and whatever, and that's fine. but at least the majority of who we're speaking to are the right type of person. And I think that's the fundamental principle, if you will, that people can take on, which is, how do I make sure I'm communicating to my ideal relationship prospect? Because, I mean, how much time do you want to waste sifting through people that aren't the right match for you?
Which goes back to the initial point, part of our conversation today, right? Otherwise, you just end up wasting time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you were to lift all the principles you use in your business right now, and then pick up the most core principles and move it across to dating right now, what would be like the top 3 or 4 things you'd say to people who are out there right now, putting themselves, literally using that word figuratively and literally putting themselves on the market? What would you tell them to do from everything that you've learned?
I think there's 4 core principles that I use when it comes to being good at sales that I think are applicable to anyone in life trying to achieve anything. Okay. Number 1, be a likable person. Okay. I'll go through these in detail, but number 1, be a likable person. Number 2, learn how to be present. Number 3, have a developmental skill of curiosity. And number 4, have 100% certainty in yourself. I think all those 4 skills are learnable. And I think every single one of them is essential for you to be able to hold yourself in a conversation with someone. And if you struggle with those 4 skills, then everything else is always going to feel like an uphill struggle. So the purpose of building on those skills is to make the rest of the journey easier for yourself. And it might mean that you need to put in some work at the beginning, because it's not skills that we're taught to harness from when we're young. And generally, most people will go through life not knowing that those are skills that they should be focusing on, and simply just not aware, right?
But Dipesh, you say be likable, but I just want someone to like me for who I am.
There's a quote from Mahatma Gandhi where he says, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." That is my answer to that.
Yeah.
You want someone to like you for who you are. You first need to be the likable person for someone else.
That you like as well.
Exactly.
You like,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
you a lot.
Absolutely. Like, you, everything in your reality is a reflection. This is my belief. Everything in your reality is a reflection of you internally. So if there's things that you're experiencing in your life that are not great, constant rejection, constant upset, whatever, the way I live my life is I look at that and I go, okay, I'm experiencing this in my life right now. What am I doing that's attracting this situation over and over again? Because the alternative to that is you consistently blame external circumstance and external situations and environment. But where's the power in that? Because if you are approaching all your life situations where everything is out of your control, then you're going to have a life that feels very, very out of control and like you can't do anything about it. And I think that that's a really, for me, it's a very shitty way to live, because I want to be able to control my outcomes as much as possible. And you can't control everything in life.
Yeah.
But having the attitude of radical self-responsibility and combine that with your willingness to become more self-aware around how things aren't going the way that you want, and maybe it's something internal that needs to change the outcome, I think is a ultimate shortcut of life.
Love it. What about the other 3 as well?
So you've got presence. Let me ask you, let me phrase it as a question. If I'm talking to you, if this is the first time we've met and I'm talking to you, you have no idea who I am, and we're trying to build a connection, a relationship, and you're asking me questions, but I'm looking down at my laptop whilst you're talking to me, how are you going to feel?
Not heard, not taken seriously, You
Correct.
don't give a crap. You don't want to be there. You want to be elsewhere.
Yeah. Now imagine that it's a relationship dating scenario, and if I'm sitting across the table from someone and they're having a conversation with me and I'm not able to look at their eyes, how would that make them feel? Presence is your ability to be directly connected with an individual in that moment in time. And the more you're able to practice that, the more likely you are to be able to build a stronger connection. It's very uncomfortable to be present with someone, because what it means is that you are saying to yourself and the other individual that nothing else in that moment matters except that moment that you're sharing together. And there's a very powerful exercise that people can do to build presence, and it's to, and you can do this alone or you can do this with someone. Okay, so there's absolutely no excuse as to why you can't practice this, but you can build presence in two ways. Build that skill by getting a close friend or a family member that you feel comfortable with already and asking them to sit in silence with you and just look into each other's eyes. And there's no words, there's no exchange, there's nothing else. It is just 5 minutes of looking into that person's eyes. And you'll realize, for most people, how much tension and discomfort that brings for you. Because most of the time in life, you're not looking directly at someone's eyes, meaning you're probably in the middle of a conversation, but then thinking about, what time am I going to have dinner tonight? Or I've still got to pick up laundry on the way home from work, or I have this event that I've got to go to on Friday night and I wonder what I'm going to wear that day. Being fully present allows you to eliminate those external thoughts, which, going back to what we spoke about earlier, shifts your energy. And if you shift your energy to be more engaged in presence with someone, the other person's going to feel it. Like, I say this with intent because I want, for everyone listening to this, I want you to think back to a time where you walked into a room and someone was in the room and you felt like something was off. You don't know why. The person that you were feeling the off energy from hasn't done anything to you. Maybe they're just in the room, but there's something in the air that feels like it's not quite right. Okay. So think about that scenario. And then now think about a scenario when you've walked into a room and you've seen someone and your energy has shifted, and all of a sudden you feel happier, you feel lighter, you feel more energized by being present in that room.
Yeah.
What is happening is that you're feeling the energy of someone else. Everyone's felt it. You say it all the time, right? Like, how many times have you said, oh, I didn't like the vibe that person gave off?
Yeah.
Right? You're feeling it. You're feeling it 24/7. So if you're feeling it 24/7, what can you do to influence your own vibe so that when you are in a scenario that you're speaking to a potential partner or you're with your existing partner, that you have the ability to make sure that they feel a good vibe from you, which in turn will also help them feel, raise their own vibe, and you will feel a good vibe from them. So that's the power of presence.
Love that. And it's crazy, isn't it? Like, so two things to mention what you said, right? When you were talking about the eye gazing thing, it reminded me of what Dr. Tara Swart was talking about on um, videos or pieces of content. She was talking about the whole thing about looking into their left eye. And so when you're looking at someone as well, because I have a tendency to look into right eyes. So then when I heard that video, I was like, okay, let me just try and switch and see if it makes any change if I look
Yeah.
into their left eye. So when you were talking, I was thinking of that, and then I thought, okay, which eye was I looking in? I was trying to stay present while I was doing that. Um, and then the second thing as well, you mentioned about vibe, and I think there's another side to that as well, isn't it? Where sometimes it could just be in your own head that you actually you kind of, and then but unless you actually say something or do something, you can almost get into your own head thinking, oh, the person's giving me weird looks or I'm getting a bit weird vibe. But actually, they're probably just thinking the same thing. They're probably looking at you, going, "That person's looking at me strange. They're giving me weird vibes." And it's kind of, and then that's where that energy becomes contagious, right? Because you're both probably thinking exactly the same thing about each other.
Yeah.
Both thinking the other person's acting weird or is giving off a weird vibe.
Yeah. And that creates like a little vortex of energy between
Yeah.
the two of you that just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. The thing is, you could, even in that scenario, you could probably break it really, really quickly.
Yeah.
Where if you're feeling all of that and still you then consciously, even before you consciously start to do something else, you're feeling all of that. Step one is you become aware of the fact that you're feeling that. Now that you're aware of the fact that you're feeling that, and if you choose to live by the principle that you are in control of this situation, then the next part of that becomes, what can I do to change this scenario if I want to?
Yeah.
And it could be as simple as maybe just smile. Like, just change your physiology.
Yeah.
Like, if you smile, maybe that person might not think that you're giving them an off vibe.
Yeah.
Simple. And you could smile. The chances are smiles are contagious just as much as bad energy is anyway. Chances are that person might smile. All of a sudden, the negative experience that you're having from an individual could turn into a positive experience. The people didn't change. The room that you were in didn't change. What changed was you. And I think if anyone's going to take anything away from this, if you want to see a change in what you're experiencing, just keep asking yourself, what can I change about myself? And I don't mean going to redo your entire personality or anything like that. I mean, what tiny, minute changes could you make today that just has a bit of a positive impact? And then watch the knock-on effect that has, and it will compound over time.
Yeah. Beautiful. And there was two more.
Curiosity. So curiosity is your ability to ask questions. And let's go into sales first, okay? The best salespeople in the world talk the least. And there is a specific reason for that, because the last thing a prospect wants is for you to bombard them with information about yourself and then feel forced into making a decision. And you can think about this from any time you've been imagine going to like a shopping center, going into an Apple store. When was the last time you bought something from anyone without them asking you questions, and they just decided to spew verbal diarrhea at you about a specific product or a service that they have, and then expected you to transact? The chances are you, in your head, if not out loud, were swearing, going, what the hell does this person think they're fucking doing? And you just want to get out of there as quickly as possible. But if that's the case for that type of scenario, why would that be different in any other scenario? So curiosity is the ability to ask the right questions, but the one defining factor on whether that's done well or not is your intention behind it. Because you can ask questions, but those questions could lead to manipulation.
Yeah.
Right? But you can also ask questions because you genuinely care. And you can also ask questions because you genuinely want to know more information and about an individual, where they're from and whatever. And the rule of thumb for this, to do this really well, is to go 3 levels deep. Okay. So, I mean, if we're going to just role play this and I'm going to learn about you as a friend, right? Tell me a little bit about where you're from.
Oh, I was born in Wales.
You were born in Wales?
I was, yeah.
No way. Okay. So whereabouts in Wales?
I was born in a place in South Wales called Cwmbran. Oh, near there, actually, just outside of there.
Is that one of those places that has a really weird spelling?
No, it's not too bad. Pontypool. But it's one of those things. The hospital I was born at probably doesn't exist anymore. So as far as I know, so that's where I was born. So a lot of people do think when they meet me that I've got a little bit of a not typical Cockney accent. So they always ask is there something there, like something different? So
fair enough. I would never have guessed Wales. So what has made you move over from Wales to London, and why did you move away?
12 years old, bright lights, big city. Come on, man. The whole dream, just wanting to take over the world, right? No, we as a family, we had, my parents wanted to buy a business out there. So they did. So we bought an off license, and then that's where we started our business there. We had business in Wales as well. We had a laundrette. And then that at that stage, that wasn't a great business to be in because everyone was at that point getting their own washing machines and doing their own thing. So it was not the ideal scenario. Nowadays, if you want a laundrette, you'll absolutely kill it.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't the right business, and then we came to London and had an off license. But again, didn't do that well because of low footfall.
Okay, where was the off license?
It was a place called Westnwood, South London.
Near Croydon?
Yeah, not far from Croydon.
Oh, my family grew up, my mum was in Thornton Heath.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in South Croydon.
Yeah.
Look at the connection. So I'll pause that there for a second. Look at the connection built just off of.
I actually forgot we were doing it. We should read the podcast to you.
So that's the point, right? Like, I'm genuinely curious about everything that you've just said. And for me to be curious, well, and this is how the four things tie into each other, I've got to ask you questions, but there's no point me asking you random questions. Be like, oh, where are you from? Oh, Wales. Okay, great. What do you like to do on the weekend? That's not great questioning. That's just asking questions for the sake of asking questions. But when you choose to go deeper, and what I want people to take away from that is I went 3 or 4 levels deep into one specific point because there's always a story. And the more you can question on one point, and it's not an interrogation, you're just questioning because you're curious and you want to learn about the individual that you're speaking to, the deeper the connection builds. And you don't have to go that far in terms of topics to cover. But you can only do that if you combine that by being present. And being present in that scenario means listening. Because if I ask you a question, you give me an answer, then I go on and ask you a completely random question as my next question for you, you're going to just sit back and go, fuck, this guy doesn't give a shit about what I just said.
What I love about what you did as well was that you added your own elements to that. You made the connections where you said, "Oh yeah, I've got family in South London as well," but you didn't hijack the conversation as well, and then suddenly make it all about you. But you still continued the line of questioning, but you still were able to kind of then what I love to call term, capturing those serendipities. Like looking at those things that connect you both in some way, shape, or form, and so it actually sticks in your head. Oh, isn't it weird that we both have this connection, and then that a lot of people don't realize that creates beautiful attraction between you. It can actually help cultivate that spark. But I love how you did that.
It's an incredibly powerful skill. There's a lot of stuff that I do now that is just unconsciously happening because I've practiced this for so many years, but that is a very intentional thing, which is when someone responds with something that you have a connection with, let the person finish their point, but then bring up the fact that you're connected in that way. Because when you're selling something, the likelihood of someone transacting with you is heavily dependent on the connection that that person feels with you.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to like services, or if you're in a relationship, like if you're going to ask someone to do something, and if they don't feel like they really know you,
Yeah.
the chances are you're going to get a no. So the deeper that connection that can be built between you two, the more likely you are to get a yes for the thing that you actually want.
Yeah.
Okay. That's curiosity. Then you've got certainty. This goes back to energy again. Everything is energy. When you are uncertain in your approach, if you are wavering, if you feel fear, anxiety, stress, worry, that energy will come through. It's our ability to flip that into certainty in our approach that allows the other person to feel confident in our wanting to learn more from them. If I just turn around to you and if I rephrase my question, and this is where certainty is a lot about like body language, tonality, and just the way you present yourself, right? If I said that same question to you and went, Amit, do you mind telling me where you're from? The vibe is completely different.
Yeah.
The the energy is off. The response that I'll get from you will be different. So again, if I ask you a question in a different way, I'm always in control. So the response that I get is also in my control. And the response that I get is a mirror reflection of how I asked. So if I ask in a way of certainty, just presenting myself out there, putting myself out there, going, Amit, tell me a little bit about your background. Like, where are you from? It's a very different energy where you will share more information than you would have done if I asked in a more timid, uncertain way. So those are my 4 core principles that every salesperson needs to have, but also every human being I think can develop, because every human being is a salesperson, even if that's not their profession.
Yeah. Just tell us again. So I remember the last 3. So we got presence, curious, and then
So
certainty. What was the first
likable
one?
personality,
Right. Nice.
presence, curiosity, and certainty.
Nice. I love that. Question for you about, because I'm the type of person when I'm out and about in a day-to-day interaction, maybe I'm going into one clear example I can think of from my past was I was in a kitchen showroom once, and the sales guy was really annoying. And he was, I find pushy salespeople really, really annoying, and really, and I can't tolerate those people because you can just tell that it's just all about business and there's no human connection.
Mhm.
But anytime I go anywhere, and I'm probably giving away too much here by saying this, but anytime I go anywhere and the person humanizes me, I'll probably be a sucker and buy whatever they're offering. I have to be so mindful because I will literally, but just because I don't want to come off as the asshole, I'll probably end up buying what they're selling.
Mhm.
But they've humanized me first. They've kind of made a connection, just kind of like had a random conversation about anything. Even as far as the weather, just saying, "Oh, how's your day going? Yeah, yeah, cool, yeah." By the way, if you just in case you were curious about what I'm doing here, it's just it's more that gentle, like I said, playful, human, non-invasive touch that they add to their style of communicating, and I find that quite endearing. I find that quite attractive, even in the sales sense as well.
Mhm.
So I think that's one for me, big one for me as well. But like when you are pitched, or if anyone comes to you, or they're offering you a service or anything like that, what do you find is a bit of a turn off for you, and just in the way that people behave, how they are around you, what they say, how they approach you, how they pitch you, or anything like that?
I interview a lot of salespeople, so I can just give it to you from that perspective as
Yeah.
well. It's the ones that start a conversation, don't have any intent on building a connection, and want to know almost immediately, do you want to buy from them or not? And I think where this becomes an issue, and I train salespeople on this as well. When you're selling something to someone, how soon do you think you should talk about the thing that you're selling? I'll ask that question to you. How soon do you think you should talk about, in order of like the conversation, at the beginning, somewhere in the middle, at the end? Like, when would you bring it up?
I've always thought in the middle. That's how I kind of operate as well, a little bit. So I think always ending and then finishing on the human touch,
Mhm.
and then sandwich it between the meat of it and as well, and also trying to be respectful of their time. So you can tell that someone's got a short time span, and then I'll just tell them straight, would you like me to tell you this? I can give you the short version, and then if you want to know more, just feel free to ask, kind of thing.
Cool.
So that's kind of how I do it.
I train people, and I've done this myself a number of times now. Don't bring it up until the end,
Okay.
because you're not priming someone enough to ask them for anything. And if you want to get a much higher percentage chance of getting a yes for the thing that you want in exchange, wait. And the reason you wait is because when you're selling anything, what you're doing is you're building up tension in that conversation. A whole sales conversation, if done well, is designed to give someone tension. Because when was the last time you did anything when you felt super relaxed? When you felt super like chilled out and mellow? Chances are very unlikely that you did something or took an action in that moment. But when you feel compelled to do something, when you feel a little bit more agitated, like you've got ants in your pants, like, oh, this is something that I need to do, the chance of you taking an action is going to be much greater.
Yeah.
Right? That is a building of tension, and a good sales conversation builds up more and more tension for someone.
Yeah.
The caveat to that is, as you're building tension for someone else, you're also building up tension internally as well.
Yeah.
So a person who is a master at selling is also a master at holding tension internally, because otherwise, I like sales as an example to cover this in, because money just generally makes people uncomfortable for the majority. So when you're talking about selling, like if we're in the middle of a sales conversation, I know at some point I'm going to ask you for money.
Yeah.
So as we're getting further and further down that conversation, I know I'm getting, in my mind, closer and closer to the point of asking you for money. So my tension is building and building and building and building. What do we want to do when we feel tension and discomfort? What's like the default setting for most people?
Probably get away.
100%.
Yeah.
You want to get rid of it as quickly
Yeah.
as humanly possible, which is why so many people, when it comes to selling, tend to try and get it out as soon as possible right at the beginning,
Yeah.
because that tension level is so high for them And the fear of rejection is so high that they do not want to go through the process and hold that tension. So the person that wins is the person that can hold tension. So when I take you through a sales conversation, I'm hyper aware of the fact that I'm building up tension for myself. And if I'm going to take you through, I've got a full framework for this. So I call it the codex, and each letter of the codex represents a part of the conversation that you take someone through. So you start off with the C, which is connection, and connection happens in 3 parts. So you have connection to yourself, you have connection to your outcome, and then you have connection to an individual. So before I even speak to someone, I actually take a minute before I jump on a call or a Zoom or whatever. I will actually take a minute just to close my eyes and breathe. I'm like, am I feeling present? So going back to like the 4 core principles, like, do I feel present? Do I feel certain about myself in this conversation? Because if I don't do that mental check-in, I could unknowingly be worried about something in the background. And because I'm worried, I bring that energy into the conversation. I don't even know that I'm doing it. So then at the end of that conversation, the prospect doesn't buy. And I'm like, what the hell happened? That was such a, like, that should have been a done deal. And then you kind of reflect back on it and you go, oh, it must be that individual. No, if you attracted a scenario where someone didn't buy from you, then you are responsible because you attracted that scenario. Now, it's impossible to be in that state 100%, and not everyone is going to say yes to you, but that's fine. That's just the game of sales. So check in with yourself and have like, just connect with yourself. Are you present? Are you certain? Are you bringing your best foot forward, your likable personality out, all of that? Then you have a connection with the outcome, which is, what do you want from this conversation? Like before you go and speak to someone, put this in the context of speed dating. Okay. Speed dating gives you a very short amount of time to be able to speak to anyone.
Great place
And
to learn sales.
yeah, I mean, I know like family members and friends that have gone to events like this, and I've heard stories about this. But like before you even sit down in front of someone, ask yourself, like, what's the goal? Because if you don't have a goal, what's the direction of the conversation? So knowing the outcome, and that outcome could be, I'm going to get a phone number. That outcome could be, we're going to organize a date. That outcome could be, we're going to leave this conversation without any fixed plans other than a time where we're going to speak outside of this event set in stone. That's it. But at least you've got an outcome. So now you have a point of focus. Without a point of focus, you're just having a conversation with no aim, which then kind of unravels this entire structure anyway, and you don't get the outcome that you were looking for. And then you end up thinking the events are shit and dating doesn't work and all of that kind of stuff, right? And then the final connection point is having a connection with the other person, which is building rapport, which is exactly what we just demonstrated earlier about the way we built that connection. And then you said something that I was like, oh, I've got that same connection with you. Let me just emphasize that as well. And that's the whole point of connection. That's the beginning.
Nice. And actually, as you were talking, when you were talking about kind of going towards the end rather than in the middle, like where do you do your sell? Actually, now when you mentioned it, when I was thinking about it, actually, I tend to do mine at the end as well. I realize now because when I do my discovery calls and my coaching calls, the freebies that I give away to people for 30 minutes, actually, I don't even talk about selling anything until right at the end of the call.
That's it.
And I give them say, right, okay, cool. I want to know what's your problem. Let me see if I can help you solve it right now. And if I can't, then of course, or not even if I can't, if you need more, here's the option for you. And so it kind of does literally come right at the end.
That's it.
But even as a value proposition and in terms of dating, I think that actually the same thing would apply as well for people. Because you want to build that connection, and only when you've got a semblance of a foundation of any sort of connection are they going to be willing to then potentially say, yeah, I don't know if you have a phone call or whatever, yeah, I'm up for a date, whatever. Then, and that does need to come up the end as well. Like I have this, again, I have this framework that I teach people, right? So when you're on a messaging, right, you need to have a point in which you say, great, I've enjoyed this conversation. Why don't we move this to, a phone call and get to know each other further? And then that's step one. And then, of course, if you have a phone call, then you can move it on to at the very end, say, great, I've really enjoyed this. Why don't we move it on to a coffee or go for do something as a date? And you just kind of follow that very simple framework as well. And it is literally a sales manifesto of how you get from one step to the next and the next and the next, and keep building that connection. And with whoever's in front of you, the people that you like you said, you've basically, through curating your offer down to its most fundamental parts, but also what you truly want.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is communicate. Because I often say that to people as well, that even on their dating profiles and relationship profiles, very few people actually say what they want. Or it's so loose and fluffy that literally it could be anyone anyway, right? And someone reading that is just going to assume it's them because it's just too broad, too full, too, would just encompass everyone anyway. But actually, the reason I say to this people that dating is a numbers game is actually because you are trying to narrow that down. You want to approach the biggest pool, but narrow it down to the amount, the constituent people that will be your ideal partner. And the only way you're going to do that is by being clear, knowing what you want, knowing what the outcome is, knowing what the goal is, and then you're going to get that eventually.
Definitely.
Yeah. I really enjoyed this today, man.
It's good.
Yeah. And is there anything else do you think that you think you should know as well? And actually, one other thing I wanted to ask you as well is that you've been with your partner a long time, and just on that front alone, what's something for you that you'd want to share with people that is important in a relationship? Because how long have you been together and how long have you been married?
9 years married
Yeah,
and 20 years together.
there you are. So it's a long time. So what's something that's kept you guys strong and overcome some of the challenges you may have faced as a couple?
Relationships are, in its purest form, consistent work. Like, that's it. Because any relationship, not just a personal relationship, any relationship is work.
Yeah.
And I think more people need to start realizing that it's not just something that you work at the beginning and then that's it, that's your relationship, and that's apparently going to stay the same, because everything's always changing. Like, you're always changing, your partner's always changing. Just by the pure fact that time's going on, life events are happening, things will always impact you, and that means that you will change. And if that's the case, if you don't change your approach to your relationship in that process, you will grow further and further apart without even realizing it. And like, I think people need to get rid of this idea that a relationship has to be a certain way, especially at the beginning, because you're only just getting to know someone else, and it's impossible for a person to be exactly how you'd expect them to be. And then also ask yourself, what's a reasonable expectation? Because if you're asking someone to be a certain way, are you also that way? And it goes back to, like, be the change that you wish to see in the world. Like, if you want, like, I'm not going to list personal things out, but if you want item 1, 2, and 3 from an individual, what's your approach to items 1, 2, and 3? Like, how do you present yourself? How do you give energy to that? How do you put that forward? Because if you're not doing it, how could you expect it from someone else?
Yeah.
Right. And I think then the next part of that is communication, which is, if you have expectation of your partner, is your partner aware that you are expecting that outcome? Because there's so many people that I've spoken to, and a lot of the problems that we've experienced and overcome in our relationship as well is the reason the problem has been there is because there's been an expectation, and the other person's not known about the expectation. And then
it's that idea, isn't it? It's that there's an old saying, between what is said and not meant and what is meant but not said, most of love is lost. And it's that idea that we just often just don't say what we want or what it is that we expecting or would like our partner to do or understand about us.
And I think there's one other point that I've witnessed externally and have so far overcome internally, and that is, I think people give up too easily. I think people find one little thing that they are not happy with, and they use it as an excuse to potentially destroy something that could have been incredible. And it comes down to it's a various number of reasons that this could happen, but it could be number one, internally, they're fearful that they might actually get what they want, which is a really weird paradox, but it does happen.
Yeah.
Where you go, oh my God, I think I'm about to get the relationship. You're not saying this because logically it wouldn't make sense, but internally you're going, I think I'm about to get everything that I've ever wanted, which might disprove one of my beliefs. Maybe that belief is that like I'm not lovable. Maybe that belief is like I'm not worthy of a relationship, whatever the belief is. And because you're about to get something that challenges that core belief in you, it's almost more painful to receive it than it is to just let it go.
Yeah.
And it goes back to something that we spoke about right at the beginning. So coming back full circle, how much time can you spend becoming self-aware of where you might be struggling in a relationship situation?
Yeah.
It's like I've just seen it with so many people that I'm close to, and everyone has to go through their own journey. So there's no judgment on anyone about any of this because everyone's got their own reasons. Everyone's got past circumstance that they've been through, and people will overcome things at a different pace, right? Hopefully. And if there's something that you can take away from this is maybe just to ask yourself, like, what is it that I'm afraid of receiving? Because a big part about a relationship is everyone talks about the giving aspect of a relationship. Like, what are you going to give into this relationship? How good are you at receiving?
Yeah.
Because if you can't receive,
Yes, so true.
Anything that anyone gives you, you're going to almost use yourself as a shield and rebound that.
Yeah, you're gonna rebound. You're gonna be like that mirror, right? Where you kind of just like you can't, almost those people who can't take a compliment, and then they're like,
I'm glad you said that. So Matt, like, to know, how do you know whether you're good at receiving or not?
yeah,
Right? The next time someone says, oh my God, you're amazing at this, what's your response?
do you deflect back?
Yeah. Is your response, no, that's not me. It was this person. Or is your response, thank you?
Yeah.
Because that's the difference of you being able to receive. And if you can't receive a compliment, how are you going to feel when someone wants to give you love?
It's so true.
How are you going to feel when someone wants to give you money? So this is huge in sales as well, right? If a big part of sales is being able to receive. If you are not practiced, and by the way, receiving is a skill.
Yes.
And receiving is something that you should practice. How are you going to receive money?
It's true. Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, like, and this applies to anything. Going for jobs, going for promotions, going for pay rises. If you're not good at receiving,
then it's not
like, you can't blame external circumstance for not receiving a pay rise.
So true. Where can everyone reach you, by the way?
Instagram, probably the easiest. Just at Dipesh Virji. And I'm sure you'll link it in this. And I'm going to leave you guys with one thing.
Go for it.
If you want to practice, a big part of a relationship or a sale or anything when you're asking for something is actually that element, which is the ask. And if you want to improve your confidence, your certainty, your belief in yourself when it comes to you asking for something and knowing that you should receive it, I would leave you with one practical thing to go and start practicing and implementing from today, from the minute you listen to this. Every time you go out to a coffee shop, to a restaurant, to a store, to a supermarket, anywhere where you are about to go and exchange money for something in return, get to the till, place your order, for example, a coffee shop, and ask for that thing for free.
Nice.
And a lot of people are going to listen to that immediately and go, what do you mean? Like, just an instant, like, clench up, the palpitations, all that. Like, and I laugh about it now because I used to be that guy, right? Like, it's scary to go and do that. The point of that exercise is not to go and try and hold someone hostage in a coffee shop to try and get a free coffee. Treat this as a game. But when you are standing at the counter, notice the thoughts that are coming up. Are you embarrassed? Are you anxious? Were you like nervous walking up to the till? Do you feel guilty for asking? Because if that is how you feel when you're asking for a free coffee for someone that you're probably never going to see again, imagine the energy that's coming across when you go, hey, would you like to go out?
Exactly.
So
Love that.
and on
Perfect
that,
way to finish. Thank you for being my guest.
thank you
You've
so
been
much for
listening to
having
the
me.
Feeling Inspired podcast. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Go check out one of the previous episodes and you're going to see a lot more as well. So thank you again to my amazing guest, Dipesh. And it's been an absolute pleasure, buddy.
Thank you so much for having me, man.